Hello, this is Willie, and we're ready for lesson 43 in A Course in Miracles workbook. God is my source. I cannot see apart from Him. Yesterday was lesson 42, which on the recording I said lesson 41, but I did in the heading I put the right title, but I spoke the wrong word. So I hope y'all were watching to see if you were catching. So today, God is my strength, vision is His gift was yesterday. To God is my source. I cannot see apart from Him. Lesson 43. I have something before we read that I also wanted to show you. This is white pine. I planted it out in my front yard years ago. And actually, my wife, before she died in 1992, had bought the white pine tree, and I planted it. And now it's a nice big tree. Oh, I don't know, probably 12, 14-inch diameter tree. It broke off back in an ice storm about 10 years ago. And I watched it that next year. The whole top broke off. It was, the branch at the top, central leader, broke off. I watched that tree over the next year when it growing season. The branches that were down here, one of those branches said, "Hey, I'll become the central leader." And I watched that thing stand up through the growing season. And it became the trunk. And so now that's the trunk of the tree. If you look at it real close, you can kind of see just a little bend in that tree where it did that. So anyway, something kind of neat to know about pine trees is they're photo sensitive. I call it gravitropic. They grow against gravity. Even if they're on a hillside, they'll grow straight up. Even though the hill's maybe 45 degrees, they're not going to grow off here at 45 degrees. They're going to go straight up against gravity. Where a hardwood tree, all your conifers are gravitropic, which they just need a central leader because they don't bend very much. But a hardwood tree is phototropic. They follow the sunlight. So if there's a big tree here and there's a little tree coming up, it'll just reach over here. That's why hardwoods have to be hardwoods, because they're supporting a lot of weight out at an angle when they're reaching around other trees. Where a pine tree, all your conifers, they just have that central leader with little small branches. They never have to support a lot of weight. So they don't need a real strong, hard wood. Where your hardwoods, being phototropic, need to be a hard wood. Anyway, pine trees have a lot of usefulness. They're high in vitamin C. You never need to have scurvy if you got vitamin C around, if you have white pine trees around. I was noticing some of the things that they've been used for through the ages. They also have vitamin A in them. Improves blood cell production, clarity and mental clearness. Helps with high blood pressure. They have antioxidants that can reduce free radicals. I've seen people I've heard of people grinding them up and making cookies. Not that I would recommend that much sugar, but if you're going to eat cookies anyway, you might as well have some pine cookies. They make nice tea, and they also make nice vinegar. You can put them, matter of fact, I made some. I'm going to try it. I just heard about this. Put it in some vinegar. I put it in a little coconut vinegar and ground it up in the blender. And now my intention is to use that for my salad dressing. And I taste a little bit. It tastes pretty good. But I expect it'll taste better as it sits for a while. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Anyway, I brought in this low-lying branch on that white pine tree that's growing in my front yard. I thought I'd bring it in my little show and tell this morning. So anyway, here we go. On lesson 43, God is my source. I cannot see apart from Him. Perception is not an attribute of God. What? Perception is not an attribute of God. His is the realm of knowledge. Yet he has created the Holy Spirit as the mediator between perception and knowledge. Without this link with God, perception would have replaced knowledge forever in your minds. With this link with God, perception will become so changed and purified that it will lead to knowledge. That is its function as the Holy Spirit sees it. Therefore, that is its function in truth. In God, you cannot see. Perception has no function in God and does not exist. So these eyes can't see in God. What sees, the vision we're looking for, God is my source, I cannot see apart from him, is that inner vision, which is really all vision, the only vision there is. Perception has no function in God and does not exist. Yet in salvation, which is the undoing of what never was, perception has a mighty purpose. Made by the Son of God for an unholy purpose, it must become the means for the restoration of his holiness to his awareness. Perception has no meaning, yet does the Holy Spirit give it a meaning very close to God's. Healed perception becomes the means by which the Son of God forgives his brother and thus forgives himself. So when you forgive your brother or your sister, you're forgiving yourself. Remember, there is no difference between us. There's just one of us. Paragraph 3. You cannot see apart from God because you cannot be apart from God. Whatever you do in him, because whatever you think with his mind. If vision is real, and it is real to the extent to which it shares the Holy Spirit's purpose, then you cannot see apart from God. Paragraph 4. 3 5-minute practice periods are required today. One as early as possible, and another as late as possible. The third may be undertaken at the most convenient and suitable time which circumstances and readiness permit. 5. At the beginning of these practice periods, repeat the idea to yourself with eyes open. Then glance around you for a short time, applying the idea specifically to what you see. 4 or 5 subjects for this phase of the exercises are sufficient. You might say, for example, God is my source. I cannot see this desk apart from him. God is my source. I cannot see this picture apart from him. Paragraph 7. Although this part of the exercise should be relatively short, be sure that you select the subjects for this phase indiscriminately, without self-directed inclusion or exclusion. 8. For the second and longer phase of the exercise period, close your eyes, repeat today's idea again, and then let whatever relevant thoughts occur to you add to the idea in your own personal way. Thoughts such as, I see through the eyes of forgiveness. I see the world as blessed. The world can show me myself. I see my own thoughts which are like God's. Paragraph 10. Or any thought related more or less directly to today's idea is suitable. The thoughts need not bear an obvious relationship to the idea, but they should not be in opposition to it. 11. If you should find your mind wandering, if you begin to be aware of thoughts which are clearly out of accord with today's idea, or if you seem to be unable to think of anything, open your eyes, repeat the first phase, and then try the second phase again. Do not allow any protracted period to occur in which you become preoccupied with irrelevant thoughts. Return to the first phase of the exercises as often as necessary to prevent this. So we're going to keep our thoughts on the idea, and occasionally we can stop, open our eyes, look around and look at 3 or 4 things, and and then I see, what does it say? I cannot see this desk was the example given. I cannot see that picture apart from him. God is my source. I cannot see this plant apart from him. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. And then we close our eyes and say, and look at our thoughts. Okay, paragraph, let's read 11 again. If you should find your mind wandering, if you begin to be aware of thoughts which are clearly out of accord with today's idea, or if you seem to be unable to think of anything, open your eyes, repeat the first phase, and then try the second phase again. Do not allow any protracted period to occur in which you become preoccupied with irrelevant thoughts. Return to the first phase of the exercises as often as necessary to prevent this. And paragraph 12. In applying today's idea in the shorter practice periods, the form may vary according to the circumstances and situations in which you find yourself during the day. When you're with someone else, for example, try to remember to tell him silently, God is my source. I cannot see you apart from him. What a nice thing to say to people who are in your presence or come to your mind. God is my source. I cannot see you apart from him. This form is equally applicable to strangers and to those you know well. Try, in fact, not to make distinctions of this kind at all. We don't even want to make distinctions between people that we know well and people that are strangers. They're all part of ourselves. That's what he's trying to get us to recognize. Paragraph 15. The idea should also be applied throughout the day to various situations and events which may occur, particularly to those which distress you in any way. For this kind of application, use this form. God is my source. I cannot see this apart from him. So if something's distressing you, just say, God is my source. I cannot see this apart from him. If no particular subject presents itself to your awareness, merely repeat the idea in its original form. Try today not to allow long periods of time to slip by without remembering today's idea, and thus remembering your function. Okay, so our function today is to tell ourselves, God is my source. I cannot see